Starting for the Patreon. Starting for the Patreon right now.
Patreon for the Patreon.
For the Patreon.
Patreon.
For the Patreon right now. Who needs those stupid commercials? I need
Well, welcome back to Patreon.
I need cash now. Because you have us singing other things to you.
So cheesy.
877 cash now. Yo, my niece Ashley. Hi Ashley, if you're listening. When she was so little, like 2 or 3, she would just randomly walk around the house in her like little dresses, like Beauty and the Beast or like Sleeping Beauty. She'd be like, "It's my money and I need it now." And she was like and she'd be like, Auntie Sammy or my mom, she'd be like, "Nanny, play hide and go seek with me." It wasn't hide and go seek, it was hide and go peek. And I'd say, "Okay." And she always hid under the dining room table. And then, like, she would randomly get annoyed or, like, forget she was playing. I'm not really sure. Like, if she was annoyed about waiting and impatient or if she forgot she was playing a game of hide and seek. But she would just randomly, like, scream it from under the table. And I'd be like, "I found you." And she'd be like, "Oh, no!" She'd get really upset.
Oh
my God.
I love that so much.
My pooper, I love
That's
her.
cute.
Okay. So, I am telling you the story of Dorothea Helen Gray, also known as Dorothea Puente.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun! We really need to get like that music or like the voices that go, yes, we need a soundboard.
Like a soundboard?
Yeah. So
like
as soon as we start getting Patreoners, we can buy that. Not purchase all the other things we should, just so I have the button that goes dun dun dun.
We have the button, so we can.
Okay, so let's get into this because we got notes. This story is nuts.
I'm excited.
So, Dorothea was born January 9th in 1929 in Redlands, California, to Trudy May, and I think just Trudy is the cutest little name. I always thought it was Gertrude.
It is cute.
And then you called her Trudy, but like
it's a
name, Trudy. And Jesse James Gray. Her parents were both alcoholics, and her father died of tuberculosis in 1937. And then her mother, after abandoning her and like her siblings, died in a motorcycle accident by the end of the same year. So, yeah, not great.
Oh.
Not good. Not good.
Wonderful.
So Puente and her siblings were sent to an orphanage where she was unfortunately sexually abused. And that's about all we know about her childhood. But Dorothea's first marriage was at the age of 16 in 1945. And it was to a soldier named Fred McFaul, F-A-U-L, McFaul, who had just returned from the Pacific Theater of World War II. They had 2 daughters between 46 and 48, and then Dorothea sent one daughter to live with relatives in Sacramento and just placed the other one up for adoption, and then she had a miscarriage, and then Fred left her in 48. So it was basically like a whirlwind. In spring of 48, Dorothea had her first arrest, so we, got married, got divorced, got arrested, so fun, for purchasing women's accessories using forged checks. And forging checks is like her thing. Like that's like her bread and butter. So she pled guilty to 2 counts of forgery and served 4 months in jail with 3 years of probation. And after she was released, like 6 months after she was released, she completely left Riverside and was like, "Fuck it, not dealing with this anymore." But then she met and married husband number 2. He was a merchant seaman.
Okay.
Named Axel Bren. Axel Bren Johansson. 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 That's so Johansson. And they met and got married in San Francisco, where she created a fake persona, and she called herself Tea Singola Nayarda. Neyaarda. Nayarda. So basically her fake persona was a Muslim woman from Egypt and from Egyptian and Israeli descent. This bitch couldn't be more white, but hey, who the fuck am I? This was a very turbulent marriage. I mean, they didn't get along very well. The fact that you completely change everything about yourself to like hide from the man you married, I think that would throw a wrench into our marriage and our problems. But go ahead. No.
So, she changed her identity to be away from him?
No.
Or
this was like the person she introduced herself as to Axel. So she wasn't Dorothea to Axel.
Oh.
She was Thea Singola Nayarda to Johansson. That was...
It does seem
weird,
very
right?
strange. Like why?
It's fucking weird.
But okay.
But
All
she
right.
took advantage of Johansson's frequent trips to the sea and invited men home, to...
Of course.
get more money, and then she would take that money and her husband's money and start gambling. So she's like killing it right now.
Yeah.
She's kicking ass, taking names. Until she gets arrested again in 1960. This time for owning and operating a bookkeeping firm as a front for a brothel in Sacramento. We are moving up in the world. Check her out. Fucking businesswoman of the 60s. She got her little kitten pumps and she keeps them in her bag as she wears her little sneakers as she walks to the brothel. Very working girl. Very working girl. She's so in.
It's
Yes.
That's
so she was
good.
found guilty and sentenced to
good.
90
It's
days
good.
in the Sacramento County Jail. And then in 61, Johansson had Dorothea briefly committed to DeWitt State Hospital. You want to know why she got committed?
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm free to ask, but I do.
Drinking, lying, criminal behavior, and apparent suicide attempts. I gotta tell you, I think I'd be
okay.
a state hospital as well at this point. Anyway, so while there, the doctors diagnosed her as a pathological liar with an unstable personality.
I mean,
Captain Obvious, defender
Yup.
of the known. I'm so glad we pay you
Yup.
all this money, doctors. So, a surprise to no one, Dorothea and Johansson divorced in 1966. And although she continued to use Johansson's name for some time, she started calling herself Sharon Johansson. She would hide her delinquent behavior by portraying herself as a devout Christian woman. And she established her reputation as a caregiver, providing young women with a sanctuary from poverty and abuse without charge. So basically, she opened up like a little boarding house. No, this time
Another
it was
brothel.
a boarding house. God.
Okay.
Get it right.
Okay. I thought
No, I
this
see.
is
I see
okay.
how you
Alright,
could
alright.
fuck that
Fair,
up.
fair.
But you are wrong. We have a boarding house. So now, okay, we're in 68, and Dorothy meets and marries her third Prince Charming, Roberto Jose Puente. And this is where we get the Puente from. And after 16 months, the couple separated. Dorothea cited domestic abuse, but the divorce wasn't finalized until 1973. And I'm going to tell you, there was like about 37 little bullets for this one, but I had to cut it down because, oh my God, who was fighting with who hit who went to the cops, who did it, like,
Yeah,
back
it's...
and forth. Basically, the best thing to say is he was an abusive fuck. She didn't like it, so she was an abusive fuck. Then he ran away, I think it was to Puerto Rico, because, now the authorities are getting involved, and I don't exactly think he was here legally. So he just kind of ran off to, like, get away from it, so she couldn't actually get, like, fully divorced until 73. So that's why it took a hot second. But
okay.
yeah,
Gotcha.
but she
Until he, like,
obviously
came
kept
back?
Puente as her last name. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So, once she got divorced, she focused on running her boarding house located at 15th and F Streets in Sacramento. She established herself as a genuine resource to the community for aid. She wanted to aid alcoholics, homeless people, and the mentally ill. She would hold Alcoholic Anonymous meetings, and she was always there to help individuals sign up to receive Social Security benefits. Fucking pillar of the community, this one. She completely
There's something
changed
not right.
her public image to that of a respectable older woman by putting on vintage clothing, wearing large granny glasses, and allowing her hair to turn gray. So think Sophia Petrillo circa Golden Girls. Like, hand to God, that's what this woman made herself look like.
I could see it. Okay,
Sicily,
picture this.
1921. This is what's
Picture
happening.
this.
Sacramento, 1973.
This is it.
This is what's happening. So she established herself as a respected member of Sacramento's Hispanic community. Her last name was Gray. Like, I just want to make sure. I know she married
Right,
into
but she's got the
Puente,
husband
but,
last name,
yeah.
so I
So
get
she would
it.
fund charities, scholarships, and she would hold radio programs. Basically, she inserted herself into this Hispanic community and was like, nah, I'm here to stay now. Y'all fucking deal with that.
Yeah.
She eventually met and married her first husband, Pedro Angel Montalov. But like a week later, he went out for milk and never came back. So...
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This seems like a lot of work. Like, to get married and then to be like, see ya.
So in 78, Dorothy Puente was convicted of illegally cashing 34 state and federal checks that belonged to her tenants at the boarding house. She was given 5 years probation in order to pay $4,000 in restitution. She was also banned from holding a boarding license in the state of California. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's doing so good. She's
Saw this
killing
coming.
it. Then in July of 82, Dorothea was convicted of 3 grand theft charges. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison, state paroled until March 21st of 86, and her federal parole sentence was extended another 2 years until 1990. Fucking killing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here are the 3 issues. On January 16th of 1982, Puente picked up Malcolm McKenzie, who was 74, from a bar and took him back to his apartment, where she reportedly slipped something into his drink before robbing him of coins, watches, and other jewelry, including a diamond ring that belonged to his mother, which she removed from his finger while he was incapacitated. Yep. On April 28th of 82, Puente met Ruth Monroe. She was found dead due to respiratory depression. Basically, that was caused by a massive overdose of codeine. Monroe was reportedly in good health when she arrived to Puente's home just over 2 weeks prior to her death. However, by the 25th, she told a friend, "I am so sick I feel like I'm going to die." Monroe's death was originally ruled an undetermined overdose, but later classified as homicide. Yeah.
Yeah.
On May
I would say.
16th, Dorothy Osborne, who was 49, found checks, credit cards, and other items missing 8 hours after Dorothea visited her home and prepared her a drink. Fun.
Oh.
So that's why she went to prison. Second time. Third time? Who knows? While she was in prison, Dorothea began corresponding with Everson Theodore Gilmouth, a 77-year-old retiree from Oregon. In September of 85, guess who went to Sacramento in his little red pickup truck with a trailer to pick up Puente?
Doesn't she get tired of the marriage thing? Although I don't know if this is going to be a marriage thing, but...
It's not a marriage thing. You think she'd get tired of it.
Oh, okay.
She doesn't.
You...
So he gets his little butt down there. September 9th, after serving only half of her sentence, Puente is released from prison and Gilmouth picks her up. So that's September. Now we're in October. Puente wrote to Gilmouth's sister, letting her know they were getting married on November 2nd. We all remember she's not divorced from the final guy yet, right? Like the last one who ran away after a week. Okay.
Yeah, because he never came back.
So a little bit after that, Puente hired a handyman. His name was Ishmael? How do you spell Ishmael? I-S-M-A-E-L?
Ishmael. I am Ishmael.
Okay.
We'll just go with Ishmael.
Ishmael Carrasco Flores.
gonna go with Ishmael.
She asked him to build a 6-foot by 30-inch by 30-inch storage box. As payment, she would give him $800 and Gilmouth's little red pickup truck. And the neighbors are like, what the fuck?
Here you
Doesn't
go.
Gilmouth need his fucking truck? Like, that's his. Why does he want to give it up? Why does he want to give it to this guy? It's only for a fucking box? Like, what are you doing? The day after the box was completed, Ishmael returned and the box had been nailed shut. So then Puente asked him, hey, yo, can you just help me with this box? I got to take it somewhere. So now the over 300-pound box that was empty the day before got loaded in that little red pickup truck, and he was supposed to drop it off at a storage location. But he kind of got bored driving to the storage location, so he ended up dumping the box near a river on the side of a highway about an hour away from Sacramento. So this is just going so well. This is going so well. Everything's great. So then, on January 1st of 1986, an unidentified body was discovered by a fisherman alongside the Sacramento River. The body was wrapped in numerous plastic bags, covered with a bed sheet, held in place by electrical tape. There were mothballs and blue toilet deodorizer found in the box that he was found in. Yeah, this is Gilmouth, in case you didn't put all that together. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no,
so
I
it was later discovered that after his death, Puente mailed fake letters and cards to Gilmouth's sisters in an attempt to make her believe that he was still alive. So she tried to cover her tracks. Puente was also found to have forged Gilmouth's signature on his truck certificate of title and continued cashing his benefits checks until July of 86. Yeah. In the fall of 1986, Betty Mae Palmer, 78, arrived at Puente's boarding house, which we have established she's not supposed to have a boarding house. Nope, not even a little bit.
Nope, she's
October
not.
14th of 86, Puente obtained a California ID card with her photo, so Puente's photo, and Palmer's name on it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So then
good
2
things are
months
coming.
after that, the mailing address on Palmer's Social Security checks was changed to Puente's boarding house address. No notes. Then Puente forged Palmer's signature and cashed nearly $7,000 worth of benefits checks belonging to Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, that's where he's going.
And then in November of 1988, Palmer's partially dismembered body was discovered in a shallow hole in Puente's front yard. Her head, hands, and lower legs were never found. Toxicology reports revealed the presence of doxylamine, an over-the-counter antihistamine, as well as haloperidol and flurazepam, both of which were previously prescribed to Palmer. She was identified on January 24th of 89, so she was found in 88, and it took them almost a full year to figure out who she was, because she had nothing.
Yeah, there's no
head, arms, legs, all gone. So then we're bouncing back again on October 21st of 1986. Puente summoned a notary to the hospital room of Leona Carpenter, 78, following a flurazepam overdose. Puente was given power of attorney over Carpenter and began cashing her Social Security checks just 10 days later. I mean, as you do. Then in December, after Carpenter was released from the hospital, she went to live with Puente. So nice. And then in February of 87,
of course she
Carpenter had to go back to the hospital. And then she got, a week or so later, she was discharged, and then she just disappeared. Never heard from her again. In 88, her body was found in the southeastern corner of Puente's yard. Toxicology reports of Carpenter's brain tissue revealed the presence of codeine, diazepam, and flurazepam. Ew. Ew.
I think you're going to tell me this, but I'm a little concerned how nobody saw her digging these holes.
Oh, we'll get to it.
I mean,
we'll get to it.
I figured you were going to tell me, but I'm like...
So in February of 1987, James Gallup, 62, moved into Puente's boarding house. On July 20th,
Of course he did.
a potentially malignant tumor was found in Gallup's colon. He agreed to further testing, but Puente later contacted his doctor's office notifying him that he had gone to LA indefinitely. Gallup's body was found buried under a gazebo in Puente's yard in November of 1988.
Jesus Christ, the gazebo on top!
Testing of Gallup's brain and liver revealed the presence of amitriptyline, nortriptyline, phenytoin, and flurazepam. I'm going to get really good at saying flurazepam. It almost sounds like...
Are these just regular, like, over-the-counter stuff that, like, you just overdose on? Is that, like, what's going on?
I should have Googled that. What's flurazepam?
Sorry.
Hold on. We'll just Google it really quick.
It sounds like it's, like, an allergy type of thing, but it might not be. Flurazepam. Not for law. Lorazepam's different.
Is used to treat insomnia. Oh, so she was sedating them. Yeah. These are all sedatives. Ugh, I hate it. Oh,
okay.
God.
That's what I figured. It was
Who was
something.
I on?
Yeah.
Okay. I just finished Gallup.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, the guy under the gazebo, yeah.
So then October 2nd, and if you notice, like, these are all like October, November, and February. It's kind of sick. October 2nd, Vera Faye Martin, 61, was sent to live with Puente. How do you get sent to live if she's not supposed to have a fucking boarding house? Like, so this is the other thing.
Did anybody check in on her to be like, hey,
that's what I was just gonna say, like, back,
like, because she didn't change her name. Yeah. It's not like she was like, this is some random
when she first was like, I'm Dorothy Puente, I'm a pillar of the community. Like, she would go to social workers and like churches and shit and like go and seek out people who had problems so they would come live at her boarding house. And she'd be always like, bring me the worst cases, bring me your hardest people, I need to help them, like shit like that. So I think that's kind of how she was justifying, like, to kill them in a sense. Like, well, they're the worst of the worst dregs, so I'll take them under my wing, and then I'll just kill them.
I mean...
And the thing with the holes, remember, she had her little buddy. So the dude who made the box.
Yeah.
So Dorothea was huge into gardening. I probably should have mentioned that. I think I took it out because I didn't make this my, like, gardening episode, and there was, like, a whole thing. But she was absolutely obsessed with gardening, and her garden was gorgeous and beautiful and had all these fucking flowers, and she always had a little human helping her. So, like, all of the people who even lived with her, like, I still have more to read about, but if you lived in her boarding house, you obviously had to help with chores. Like, you weren't just living there, you know. So not only was she taking your money, she was also using you for manual labor. Makes sense. So what she would do is, like, you know, everybody would have these cute little chores and, like, you know, make your bed, do the dishes, do your laundry, help me with the garden, things like that. And this garden that she had was astonishing. Like, just flowers and vegetables. And at one point she had roses. So she got this house. It wasn't exactly her house. She had the house and she was living there with the original owners, and they were like, we're gonna sell it and move. And she's like, well, how about you don't sell it, how about you rent it to me and I'll just take care of it, and then you go live wherever, because you guys are rich and don't need the money anyway. And they're like, fuck yeah, let's do it, we don't want to get rid of our house anyway. And the wife of the original owner had a huge rose garden. Like, roses were her thing. So that's kind of what started the garden. And then Dorothea, now running a boarding house the first time when she got in trouble, built onto that garden. And she always had little helpers who would dig the holes or do whatever. It was all part of, like, the boarding house stuff. So this is October 21st of 87. Dorothy Miller, 65, was placed in an upstairs flat in Puente's home. Just weeks after her arrival, Miller disappeared. On November 20th of 87, Puente hired a carpet cleaner to remove a large pile of foul-smelling slime from Miller's room. Puente continued to forge Miller's checks, however, totaling over $11,000 after she was no longer at the boarding house. Miller's remains were later discovered buried under a slab of concrete near some rose bushes. Oh, I told you the rose bush story in the perfect time. Yeah, look at that. Tissue samples from Miller's brain revealed the presence of carbamazepine and fluorazepam. I mean, yeah, man.
Of course. She loves that one.
Easy to deal with. So in February of 88, this is her undoing, this one. February of 88, Alvaro Bert Gonzalez Montoya, 51, arrived in Puente's home. And he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was considered an advanced case. But she kind of took Bert under her wing. This was her little person. And he got all the good jobs to do. And there was a lot of resentment building up with him and the other boarders. It was a whole thing. In March, so in February of 88, he goes to live with her. In March, an application designating Puente as Montoya's benefits payee was filed. The end of August, a roommate saw a man cleaning out Bert's clothing from his closet. He missed an appointment on August 29th and was last seen on August 24th. So Puente started telling people that Bert had gone back to Mexico to visit his relatives. Nobody really believed him. So, like, specifically Bert's social worker was like, that doesn't sound right. Like, why would he do that?
Yeah,
how would
because
he have the means to do that? Did you help him? And she's like, no, he just did it. And she's like, yeah, no. So then the social worker started making reports and looking into this more. So in November,
right,
Puente asked a former convict who had been working in her yard, another one, to contact the social worker pretending to be Bert's brother-in-law and let her know that he was in Mexico. The social worker was like, yeah, no, I don't think that's a thing. This isn't cool. I don't think that's
I don't think
right.
You're the person
yeah,
you think you are.
Right. So then on November 10th, while so then on November 10th, the social worker, Bert's social worker, found or sent... On November 10th, the social worker received a letter from Michael Obregon wrapped in a paper towel to avoid fingerprints. And basically it was another thing saying, you know, Bert was wherever. Days later, Montoya's body was found buried adjacent to Carpenter. The toxicology testing revealed presence of loaxapine and flurazepam, diphenhydramine, amitriptyline, and carbamazepine. I'm so glad I did not go to medical school because this is just bullshit. Montoya had been prescribed for all the drugs except for the carbamazepine. So then on March 9th of 88, Benjamin Fink, 55, was sent to live with Puente. By the end of April, Fink was gone. Another tenant reported smelling a foul odor emanating from his room, but Puente said that, you know, the sewer backed up. I hate when that happens. On April 29th, super weird, Puente received 12 bags of cement. That June, she had a hole dug next to the door of the metal shed, which was later filled with what? Everybody? Concrete? Yep, you were right. Absolutely. And then in November, Fink's body was discovered in this area wrapped in a plastic knotted bedspread, secured with duct tape and covered with blue absorbent pads. His toxicology report revealed the presence of amitriptyline, laxapine, and, you guessed it, flurazepam. So, November 7th of 1988. Police speak to John Sharp, who is a former resident of Puente's boarding house. And it's about the disappearance of Bert. So the cops show up because the social worker called. And initially Sharp told police that he had seen Bert there 2 days earlier. But then he slipped the officer a note that said, "She wants me to lie to you." So he met with the police later on at a different location and told the officer the full story. On November 11th of 1988, a detective returned to Puente's residence and, with her permission, began digging in areas that appeared to be recently disturbed. Mm-hmm. At this point, Dorothea asked officers if, while they're poking around, she can just run down the street to pick up something from a neighbor. And they say okay. Like, they let her go. So this bitch hops in her car and it's like, I'm too old. I'm not going to walk. I'm just going to drive. Yeah. 30 minutes later, they discover the first body. The lead investigator had been digging and soon began pulling out bits of leather from the ground when his shovel hit what he thought was a tree root. After digging and pulling on the root for a few minutes, the tension gave and the investigator looked at what he was holding. It was a human femur. Yeah, and those little pieces of leather were human skin.
Mm-hmm. Skin.
I wrote.
Why would you have leather?
I wrote ew. I wrote ew. So Puente's gone. She drove for a few hours and then hit up a bus station and then hopped on a bus to LA. So now there's an APB out on her. You know, fucking all over the news. Old person, look out for, Sophia Petrillo. Don't let her get you. That's November 13th, the APB's put out. So then November 15th, 2 days later, Charles Wilgues meets Puente in a bar, and she was using the alias Donna Johansson. They talked, they got close, and Charles agreed to take Puente back to his apartment. The next day, Charles is watching the news, and what does he see but a report about Dorothea Puente? And this guy goes, yo, that looks like the bitch I brought home last night. So he calls the police. He calls the police, thank God.
I would, yeah.
The police come, and he's like, yeah, man, I know that Puente lady you're looking for. She's in the bathroom. Go get her. And she went without a fuss. She's like, oh, okay, you got me. You got me. So on December 17th of 1988, Puente is flown from Hollywood Burbank Airport back to Sacramento, where she is booked in county jail again. She is formally charged with the murder of Montoya. That's Bert. And then on March 31st of 89, the complaint was amended and filed, charging Puente with 9 counts of murder with special circumstance, and that caused it to be able to be qualified as a death penalty case. So according to investigators, most of her victims had been drugged until they overdosed. So that was that fluoxetine. Puente then wrapped them in bed sheets and plastic lining before dragging them to open pits in the backyard for burial. At one point, she actually even had a room in the boarding house that she kind of kept them in, and that was called the death room.
Ew, and that's the smell room.
Yep.
Gross.
On May 24th of 1990, the prosecutor rested his case, having called 71 witnesses and introducing 108 exhibits into the preliminary hearing. On June 19th of 1990, a judge ruled that there was ample circumstantial evidence to send Puente to trial, and on July 31st of 90, Puente pled not guilty.
Not guilty.
October 19th.
Was it for insanity reasons, or was it just I didn't do that? They just ended up in my backyard.
People
I have
just
no
want
idea.
to die here. It's so beautiful.
I have no idea. It's
on October 19th of 92, a judge ruled Puente would face all 9 murder counts and that all cases would be heard in Monterey County. Puente's trial began on February 9th of 93. By the conclusion of the trial, 156 witnesses testified, more than 3,100 exhibits had been submitted, and over 22,000 pages of transcript were recorded. After deliberating for 11 days. Okay, now hear me out. Puente's trial began in February of 93. After deliberating for 11 days, on August 2nd of 1993, the jury told the judge they were deadlocked on all 9 counts of murder and asked for further instruction. So the judge took a beat. That's what he did. The next day,
get back in
the
there.
next day, the judge ordered the jury to resume their efforts and break the deadlock. So then on August 26th, so 24 days later, Puente was convicted of 3 counts of murder: Benjamin Fink, Leona Carpenter, and Dorothy Miller. The jury, after deliberating for 35 days, remained deadlocked on 6 cases. That included Ruth Monroe, Everson Gilmouth, Betty Mae Palmer, James Gallup, Vera Faye Martin, and unfortunately Alvaro Burt Gonzalez Montoya. During the penalty phase of the trial, jurors found themselves deadlocked once again, and on October 13th of 93, Puente was spared the death penalty. On December 10th of 93, she was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. She was incarcerated at Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla. And then she died in prison on March 27th, 2011 from natural causes at the age of 82. And now you would think this is where my story ends. But it does not. And let me tell you why. Our buddies from the Ghost Adventures crew stopped by this beautiful Victorian home. Where they met with the retired lead detective named Cabrera, where he tells them in 87 a woman by the name of Dorothea Puente killed 9 victims and buried them in her yard. Cabrera soon gave the group a tour of the interior of the home, showed them the death room, where Dorothea would leave her unconscious victims to slowly die from a drug she induced them with called Dalmane, which is the fluoxetine, just like that's like the main name for it. Okay. And the detective said bodies would be left there from anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks before being buried. No wonder it smelled like shit. After recovering the bodies from the ground and then investigating the inside, the detective was overcome with a foul scent and found putrefied body fluids had seeped into the rug and onto the wooden floor in the death room. So now the house is like a 2-family, let's call it. So you have the upstairs and the downstairs. And the downstairs owner, or inhabitant, what's the word? Tenant. The downstairs tenant. There we go, I got it.
Tenant,
The downstairs tenant is a 91-year-old woman named Peggy. She tells the Ghost Adventures crew that she felt a presence in the room she sleeps in every night. And this one time she saw a spirit of an elderly woman who she presumed was Dorothea. She describes the spirit as having a smile on her face, but she wasn't smiling in her eyes. She said nobody can smile without smiling with their eyes. So Peggy takes them to her bedroom where she saw Dorothea, and Zach rolls on a recorder and gives Peggy a chance to speak to Dorothea. Peggy asks, what does Dorothea want and why is she here? And then asks why she, meaning Peggy, is the main target of Dorothea. After an EVP session was done and a few cameras were off, Peggy tells off camera that she was pushed by an unseen force. Zach and Aaron later review the recorder and find an EVP saying to die right after Peggy asks, why are you here? Upon further review, they found another voice saying, you're dead, after she asks, why me? So after Peggy asks, why me, Dorothea goes, you're dead. I don't like it. So Zach, of course, claims the voice they captured is the voice of Dorothea Puente. And Zach tells Dorothea, wherever she could be, he will banish her from this house and set free the people she murdered and drugged. Good for him. Where would we be without him?
Because he can do that.
So this is like my favorite part. So Zach invites 2 psychics, Michael and Marty Perry. And I don't know if you've ever heard of these 2. They're like an amazing duo. So Michael, they're both psychic, and Michael connects with them and like can have conversations and like, you know, relay whatever. But Marty can see and draw who he's talking to, who Michael is talking to. So while Michael is reading and doing whatever, Marty's usually sitting there drawing or sketching. So On their way to the house, Zach made sure that the Perrys were blindfolded and didn't know where they were going. So basically the crew picked them up at the airport, gave them a blindfold, and drove them to the spot. So Michael gets there and he senses two spirits. One is a man and the other is an older woman who does not, nope, not even a little bit want to talk to him. Like, she just kind of hides in the corner. He immediately senses feeling choking or coughing, and as if he's feeling the pain of the victims when they crossed. And a few seconds later, Jay from Ghost Adventures starts having the same problem. So he's having issues breathing. Zach allowed Michael to move around, and they entered the living room and feels the presence of a tall man, and he gets the letters A and B, and the crew remembers a victim of Dorothy named Alvaro Montoya, whose nickname was Bert. Yep, who was also referred to as A.B. Montoya. Michael channels the spirit and possesses a bit of its memory. Michael claims he doesn't remember the kitchen being on his right of the room while channeling Bert. So Bert's basically like, I don't remember the kitchen being here. I thought there was a wall. Like, what's going on? Oh. So as they're all going through this, the detective's still there. And he's like, well, yeah, back in 87, 88, when we investigated, there was a wall. The new owners did some renovation. So they moved the kitchen. Yeah. So that was crazy that Michael knew that, because nobody knew that. Like, the only person who knew was the detective, because he had been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was a detective.
It was weird because as they were following Bert through the house, Bert like went to stop, but he should have been able to go into the kitchen. It was like, there's supposed to be a wall here. Where's the wall? It's actually really creepy. So Marty completed the two spirits she drew, and she shows them. One spirit she drew had the same facial structure as Dorothea, and it was smiling, but the eyes weren't.
But so eyes
they
weren't.
Bring the drawing down to Peggy, who lives downstairs, and she goes, yeah, that's the person who visits me at night. And then they show you a side-by-side of the drawing in Dorothea Puente, and it's not perfect, but you can see it. Wow. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you showed me this, I'd be like, oh, that could be a caricature of Dorothea Puente. So now I'm just going to go through everything that gets said and all the creepy things that happen, and then I'm done. So the prelim investigation we kind of talked about already. You know, when he asked, why are you here? To die, you're dead. Michael and Jay both feel a choking sensation. Then during the investigation, the EVPs they get are, I don't care, get out, and a growl. The spirit box voices say, unexplained male voice. Oh, like there's just like gurgling and it's unexplained.
Right, and it's unexplained.
Peter, hold me, and Jenny. Zach feels pain in his lower back. Then there's the obulus voices that say bury, 15, and it says 15 twice. It says earthen, dirt, killed, night, and east. And a lot of this was as they were asking, you know, where are you buried? When were you buried? I was buried at night. I'm in the east corner. Right. I'm in the dirt. There were 15 of us. And now remember, 9 people were... She was charged with 9 counts of murder, but they keep saying 15. Just keep that up here for like a second.
Right.
So then they have physical contact, which is Zach becomes very lethargic while on a bed. So dramatic. He believes he's feeling the drug state that Dorothy's victims experience. He's like laying on the bed in the death room. And then he's like, I can't move. This must be what they felt like when they were drugged by Dorothea Puente. And then he makes himself fall off the bed. And there's like a thud. And then, is it Jay or Billy? One of them runs in. He's like, what happened to you, bro? And he's like, I'm dying. Like that. I fell. So then, this was so funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's funny. So Zach's on the bed and he's just starting this whole, I'm so lethargic, man. I think I'm getting drugged. And he's laying on the bed. So Billy... They say he started channeling Dorothea, and he just goes, well, why don't we put a pillow over your face? And then Zach and Aaron are like, excuse me? And he's like, I don't know why I just said that. And they're like, you just said you used to suffocate Zach. And he's like, yeah, but that wasn't me. Like, I thought it and I said it, but it wasn't me that said it. And they're like, okay, bro, but it was you. Like, it was you. Then there are unexplained noises and footsteps, obviously. Billy feels pockets of cold air around the puck device. And then this is what the puck device puts out. And it does put out additional names. So the puck device says, Rhonda, Count, Below, Paul, Under, Trap, Multiple, Business, Hell, Spirits, Digging, Cement, Pine, Within, Anthony, Maddie, East, Persons, and Foliage. So now within all of those, there are an additional 6 names, which would create the 15 that this keeps saying, even though Puente was only done for 9. But
charged with 9.
The ghosts keep saying there are 15 of us. They haven't found 6 of us, basically. Zach feels something rush up on him. Oh, and this part was really cool. They took out the SLS camera, so that's the one where it shows you the stick figures. And they were in Peggy's apartment in the basement, and they were, like, following her around. Like, they could see Dorothy and jumping around. So, like, the little thing was doing this, and then whenever Zach tried to banish it and be like, be gone, whatever, bleh, it would get all pissed off and, like, go, like that. And...
He can't banish things. That's not his job. That's
if
not
he can bitch and moan.
Does he have like an exorcism? He has like an exorcism certification
too. Right next to his McDonald's. He can just thanks for working here. Fucking thing on the wall. It's like that. But that is, my friends, the story of Dorothea Puente. And all the people she killed and her house of horrors that is now haunted. Thank you for coming to my Patreon.
Jesus Christ. So you think that, like, there's people still buried there? Is that kind of what it's implying? I kind of think
it's implying that. I also think that possibly, like, the earlier time when she had the boarding house. So... But I think
the
it's
other
boarding
house.
It's like super weird. Like when you as you could see, like as I was going through it, I got it gets a little confusing because of how everything happens and how they find it, because they don't find it chronologically.
Right.
Like they really had to piece it together.
Right.
But I think, so she had the boarding house, then she went to jail and was told you can't have a boarding house anymore, and then she has a boarding house. But I think it's all the same house. Like, I don't think she ever really stopped except when she was in prison. So.
Okay, so all right. So there's more people buried there. They just didn't. All the
bodies. Okay. I mean, think of how far are you going to dig, and how much resource? If you already have 9 bodies, you think you have enough to.
And there's someone under the goddamn gazebo, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
There's
got to be a Ghost Adventures episode. Who was it, Billy or Jay? One of them goes out to the front yard and starts digging a hole, like where the girl whose just torso was found. And
Why
he had the ovulus. That's where a lot of those came from. And I'm like, yeah, dude, just let it go. Like, just leave them be. Just leave them be.
Don't do that.
Point. I mean, if she wanted to talk to you, you didn't have to dig in the ground for her to talk to you. Like, that's just how I feel. I could be wrong. I'm no expert.
Yeah.
I know I'm not an expert.
It's not. It doesn't give good vibes. I don't like it.
Like, this one always fucks with me every time I hear it. Like, this is the first time I've actually researched it, but I've heard it a couple times, like, from different... I think I heard it on Morbid, and I heard it on... And That's Why We Drink, and then obviously Ghost Adventures. But, yeah, I didn't realize... Like, I knew she killed a whole bunch of people. I didn't realize how confusing it was. But I'm really glad I kept it for Patreon, because this was supposed to be a main episode, and it would have been all over the place.
It makes sense, though. Like, I see...
It's a lot.
Yeah, like that. So it's just crazy.
So yeah, friends, that is your Patreon story from me.
That was fun.
Dorothea Puente. Yay!
Yay!
Thanks for coming.
Hope you guys enjoyed.
Come back next month when we have more stories
All right.
for you. And let us know if there's something special you want us to cover, because we'll cover it for you. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Love you. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks. Say spooky bye.